Mistress fakes cancer to move into billionaire's house. Pregnant wife's heart is shattered. Isabel Swanson thought she had the perfect life, a successful husband named David Swanson, a lavish estate in Connecticut, and a baby on the way. Yet in one devastating twist, her world shatters when a mysterious woman named Lorena Vale claims she's dying of cancer and manipulates her way into the Swanson mansion. David, blinded by guilt and misguided compassion, welcomes Lorena into their home. Isabel's heart breaks as she suspects foul play but struggles to prove it. What unfolds is a tale of deceit, heartbreak, and emotional warfare, culminating in a dramatic showdown that tests the limits of loyalty, love, and survival. Nestled in the rolling hills of Fairfield County, Connecticut, the Swanson estate was a monument to the achievements of David Swanson, a self-made millionaire who rose from humble beginnings in Bridgeport. The long driveway, lined with manicured hedges, wound past a gleaming fountain before reaching the imposing stone mansion that David and his wife Isabel called home. With over 15 rooms and 7 acres of land, the estate could have felt isolating, yet for Isabel, it was a dream come true. In her youth, Isabel Caldwell had harbored modest dreams of a cozy suburban life. She grew up in a small Pennsylvania town, raised by parents who taught her the virtues of kindness, honesty, and hard work. Fate brought her to New York City for university, where she studied art history and volunteered at local galleries. That was where she first crossed paths with David Swanson. At the time, David was a driven entrepreneur establishing a new tech startup. Their connection was instantaneous. She admired his ambition and bright optimism, while he was enchanted by her warmth and genuine spirit. Their courtship felt like a fairy tale. Weekend getaways to quaint inns in the Berkshires, late-night chats in trendy Manhattan bistros, and laughter shared over simple pizza dinners. Despite David's growing business empire, he never lost his sense of wonder around Isabel, calling her his lucky charm. When he proposed to her on a star-lit night in Central Park, she accepted without hesitation. In the 5 years that followed, they built a life that many envied. The enormous house in Connecticut was their latest acquisition, a sign of David's skyrocketing success. Isabel had grown accustomed to her husband's demanding schedule. Evenings often found him juggling client dinners or jetting off for meetings across the country. Yet, in the quiet moments they had together, he always made her feel cherished. When Isabel discovered she was pregnant, they shared tears of joy. It seemed that everything was falling into place. In the early months of her pregnancy, Isabel took pleasure in transforming the house into a home. She hired interior decorators and purchased artwork she felt would bring warmth to the echoing halls. A once empty spare room began its transformation into a nursery, painted a soft yellow, a color of hope and light. David, though busy, never missed a chance to place a gentle hand on her belly, marveling at the life they had created together. Their social circle included philanthropic neighbors, friends from David's business ventures, and a few of Isabel's old university acquaintances. They hosted elegant dinner parties, drawing compliments on their hospitality and the mansion's grandeur. On the surface, Isabel's life glittered with the promise of a bright future. But beneath that shimmer, cracks were beginning to form. She couldn't foresee that a single, unexpected encounter would rip apart the world she'd so lovingly built. For in this pinnacle of bliss, destiny was quietly laying the groundwork for a betrayal that would test Isabel's courage, her moral compass, and her capacity for love. It all started innocently enough. One afternoon, while Isabel was strolling through the estate's gardens, her phone buzzed with a message from a distant acquaintance. Susan Delgado, an event planner they had worked with for a charity function. "Isabel, have you heard of Lorena Vale?" the text read. She's asking around about David, says she's close friends with him, but I've never seen her before. Something feels off. Isabel frowned, pausing in front of a bed of pink hydrangeas. The name Lorena Vale rang no bells. She'd met countless people at her husband's many business and social functions, but that name had never come up. Curiosity pricked at her conscience. I haven't heard of her, she typed back. Thanks for the heads up. Later that evening, Isabel mentioned the message to David over dinner. He seemed momentarily startled before brushing it off. I might have met her at one of my investor retreats, he explained hastily. So many people come and go, it's hard to keep track. Isabel nodded, forcing a smile. She trusted David, and it didn't seem like a major issue. However, the flicker of discomfort in his eyes did not escape her notice. Still, she dismissed it. David was juggling a million responsibilities. Perhaps the mention of yet another stranger was just overwhelming. About a week later, the name resurfaced in an unexpected way. While Isabel browsed a local boutique in town, a woman approached her. She was tall, with long dark hair and striking green eyes, wearing a simple black dress that contrasted starkly with her radiant complexion. Introducing herself as Lorena Vale, she offered Isabel a warm smile. I've heard so much about you and David, Lorena said gently. He's been such a blessing in my life. Isabel blinked, taken aback. I'm sorry, have we met before? Lorena gave a sad little shrug, explaining that she was just a friend who had attended a couple of David's fundraising events for cancer research. His generosity is incredible, she said, her voice tinged with gratitude. I've been going through some health challenges. He's helped me so much. Though polite, Lorena was vague about the specifics, quickly pivoting the conversation to praise David's philanthropic nature. Isabel tried to glean more details, but Lorena evaded her gentle probing. Eventually, the woman excused herself, offering a parting, "We'll chat again soon, I hope," before disappearing among the racks of clothing. Strangely unsettled, Isabel returned home to share the encounter with David. He listened attentively, then forced a casual laugh. She's probably just one of those social climbers, trying to network in philanthropic circles, he said, flipping through his phone. You know how people can be. Yet something in David's demeanor was of an anxious energy that made him put down his fork barely halfway through dinner. He excused himself early to make some urgent calls. Alone at the table, Isabel felt an unaccustomed knot in her stomach. A voice in her head whispered that Lorena Vale's role in their lives was more significant than David was letting on. Little did she know, that was the moment the first seeds of devastation were being sown. Over the next few weeks, Isabel observed subtle shifts in David's behavior. He started receiving more phone calls at odd hours, and once she caught him hastily silencing his ringing cell when she entered a room. The once inviting glow in his eyes now flickered with anxiety and occasional guilt, something she'd never before seen in the man she'd called her rock. One evening, as they prepared for bed, Isabel casually asked, "Have you heard from that woman, Lorena Vale, lately? She seemed quite determined to befriend us." David, slipping under the covers, looked momentarily flustered. I might have gotten a few messages. She's dealing with some personal stuff, apparently." He paused, as if contemplating his next words. "She says she's sick, or something like that." Isabel's forehead creased. Sick, as in cancer, that's what she implied. David pulled the comforter up, avoiding her gaze. "I don't know all the details. She just asked for advice regarding some charitable programs, maybe fundraising resources. I told her I'd look into it." A pang of empathy struck Isabel. She understood how terrifying health struggles could be. She had volunteered at a cancer foundation during college and had seen firsthand how crucial support could be for patients. Still, a nagging suspicion lingered about Lorena's sudden closeness to David. "I see," Isabel murmured. If she really is ill, we should reach out, see if there's something we can do. David nodded, but his reluctance to elaborate spoke volumes. As the lights went out, Isabel lay awake, her mind a riot of questions. Why did David seem so uneasy about Lorena's supposed illness? And why did her own instincts scream that something wasn't right? Days later, the tension escalated. David left for an overnight business trip in Boston, or so he said. Isabel spent a quiet evening organizing the baby's nursery, her heart warming with each fold of a tiny onesie. She tried to quell her worries, reminding herself that David had always been devoted to her. But the next morning, the local tabloid website, Manhattan Expose, published gossip that stung like a slap to the face. Millionaire David Swanson spotted at luxury spa with mystery brunette. A grainy photo accompanied the headline, showing a man with David's tall build and trademark grin escorting a dark-haired woman into a sleek car. Isabel's phone nearly slipped from her trembling hand as she read the article. The piece offered no definitive proof, just rumors that the pair had spent the weekend engaged in private negotiations. Still, the parallels were undeniable, and the heartbreak threatened to overwhelm her. Was her beloved husband secretly seeing Lorena Vale? When David returned late that night, with an uncharacteristic lack of souvenirs or travel anecdotes, Isabel confronted him. He stammered excuses, something about a last-minute investor who needed discreet pampering. But the tabloids had planted a poisonous seed of doubt in Isabel's heart. The next few hours passed in fraught silence, each aware of the other's turmoil. Outside, a thunderstorm raged, rattling the windows of the grand estate. Inside, Isabel felt her safe, steady world teetering on the edge of collapse. The storm outside seemed an apt reflection of the swirling tension within the Swanson household. Isabel tried to find solace in her daily routines, prenatal appointments, selecting paint swatches for the nursery, and reading up on parenting techniques. Yet, no matter how hard she attempted to distract herself, Lorena Vale's shadow loomed large in her thoughts. One morning, while David was out supposedly meeting investors, a large bouquet of lilies arrived at the door, addressed to him. The attached card bore a simple yet troubling message: "Thank you for understanding, Lorena." Isabel, who had intercepted the delivery, stared at the neat handwriting in stunned silence. Understanding about what? Later that day, David came home, face paler than usual. As soon as he spotted the flowers on the kitchen counter, he tensed. "Isabel, I can explain," he began, but she cut him off, her eyes burning with hurt. "Then do it," she said sharply. "Tell me why some woman named Lorena is thanking you. Why the press is printing pictures of you two, and why you keep shutting me out." David clenched his jaw, struggling to speak. When he finally did, the words spilled out in a rush. "She claims she's dying of cancer, Isabel. Stage 4, she's alone in this city with no family, no real friends. She asked for my help. I couldn't just abandon her." A stabbing pain lanced through Isabel's chest. "So you took her on secret weekends at spas, while letting your pregnant wife sit at home, worried sick. None of this makes sense." "It's complicated," David insisted, eyes pleading. He wouldn't meet her gaze, fidgeting with his watch strap. She said the treatments are excruciating, that she needed a sanctuary away from the hospital environment. "I tried to keep it private because I know how it looks. But it's purely humanitarian, I swear." Isabel's mind reeled. Was David truly so gullible, or was he weaving an elaborate lie? Her love for him warred with her simmering distrust. "Why hide it from me?" she demanded. "We could have helped her together, found legitimate ways to support her. I've done volunteer work for cancer patients. You know that." David looked trapped. "She insisted on discretion. She's proud. And I was worried you'd think I was having an affair. The media got wind of it somehow, and it spiraled." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I'm sorry, Isabel," he whispered. "I've made a mess of this, but you have to believe me, it's not romantic. She's ill." Isabel heard the sincerity in his voice, but also sensed a deeper layer unspoken. She couldn't shake the gut feeling that Lorena's story was more complicated than a mere philanthropic crisis. For the moment, though, she remained silent. The lines between truth, lies, and the illusions in her once happy marriage were blurring more every day. Unbeknownst to them, Lorena was plotting her next move, a grand deception designed to wedge herself even further into David Swanson's life and home. 2 weeks later, the unimaginable happened. Lorena Vale moved into the Swanson mansion under the pretense that she required constant care. The shocking arrangement was sprung on Isabel one Thursday evening. She had just finished her prenatal yoga class when David called, voice taut with urgency. "Isabel, you have to hear me out," he pleaded over the phone. "Lorena's health has taken a drastic downturn. She says she needs around-the-clock assistance and can't afford private nurses. She has nowhere else to go." Isabel, stunned, could barely speak. "You're telling me you offered her a room here? In our home?" The rage and disbelief crackled in her voice. "She's on her way now," David admitted. "It's temporary, I promise, just until we find a better solution. We can't let a dying woman suffer alone." With that, he hung up, leaving Isabel's heart pounding in fury and confusion. An hour later, Lorena arrived by taxi, pale and trembling, at least in appearance. She clutched a small suitcase and wore a scarf wrapped around her head, as if hiding hair loss. David hovered around her protectively, guiding her inside with a gentle hand. Isabel stood by the staircase, arms folded over her swelling belly, feeling her heart clench painfully at the sight. "Isabel," Lorena breathed, feigning a weak smile, "I'm so sorry to intrude like this." "Thank you for opening your home." Speechless, Isabel merely nodded. Inwardly, alarm bells clamored. Something about Lorena's demeanor felt staged, the carefully placed scarf, her dramatic wincing as she stepped forward. Nevertheless, David seemed thoroughly convinced. That night, the entire atmosphere of the mansion shifted. Lorena claimed the guest suite on the first floor, specifically chosen because climbing stairs was too painful for her condition. David spent hours fussing over her needs, arranging fresh towels, fetching medication, preparing specially requested meals. Isabel, left to observe from the sidelines, felt her role in her own home shrinking. Even the household staff appeared uncomfortable, uncertain how to address this newcomer. As the days stretched on, Lorena's presence became a constant thorn in Isabel's heart. She was always around, competing for David's attention. If he wasn't at work, he was by Lorena's side, discussing medical treatments, scheduling follow-up visits with a doctor who conveniently never seemed available to speak with Isabel. Each time Isabel tried to broach the subject, offering to accompany Lorena to appointments or to consult specialists from her volunteer network, Lorena swiftly declined with teary-eyed insistence that her condition was too delicate to handle outsiders. Meanwhile, the baby in Isabel's womb continued to grow, a reminder of what truly mattered in her life. Yet each kick also reminded her that this surreal intrusion threatened her peace and well-being. In bed at night, she lay awake, tears slipping silently down her cheeks as David dozed fitfully beside her. She realized with mounting despair that the marriage she once considered unbreakable was under siege by a woman with an agenda far darker than mere illness. Isabel's days blurred into a grim routine of forced politeness. Each morning, she would wake up to find Lorena sipping tea in the conservatory, wearing a plush robe as if she had always lived there. David insisted on checking on Lorena before leaving for the office, leaving Isabel feeling like an afterthought in her own home. The tension was palpable among the household staff as well. Their longtime housekeeper, Gloria Rios, discreetly expressed concern to Isabel. "I've served this family for years, ma'am," she said softly one afternoon. "I can tell when something isn't right." She lowered her voice, eyes darting to ensure they weren't overheard. "She's taking advantage of Mr. Swanson's kindness. I see her ordering brand name supplements, exotic foods, all on his tab." Isabel's stomach knotted. She had tried to maintain a veneer of composure, but the cracks were impossible to ignore. The final straw came when she discovered that Lorena had requested renovations to the guest suite remodeling. The bathroom to include a jacuzzi tub, allegedly for therapeutic soaks. David, citing Lorena's fragile health, promptly agreed to the extravagant upgrade. To add insult to injury, workers hammered away at the walls day and night, making it nearly impossible for Isabel to rest. One evening, after the contractors finally left, Isabel confronted David in his study. She found him hunched over his desk, exhaustion and worry etched into his features. "We need to talk," she stated, shutting the door behind her. He looked up, guilt evident in his eyes. I know. The renovation is over the top, but it's not just the renovation, David," she snapped, her voice quivering. "It's everything. You've let this woman monopolize our lives. You're ignoring me, our unborn child, our marriage, and all based on a diagnosis I've never seen officially verified." David's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting Lorena is faking cancer?" Isabel folded her arms protectively over her growing belly. "I'm not a doctor, but I do know something feels wrong, and you're refusing to see that." He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "You're stressed. This pregnancy is taking a toll on you," she cut him off with a bitter laugh. "Don't you dare blame my concerns on hormones. You're the one acting irrationally, bringing a stranger into our home without a second thought." Silence stretched, thick with unspoken resentments. Finally, David exhaled heavily. "I love you, Isabel, but Lorena needs help I can provide. Can't you understand that?" Her eyes stung with tears. "I used to admire your big heart, David, but compassion shouldn't come at the expense of your wife's peace of mind. If Lorena's condition is real, then we'll find legitimate medical support. Until then, she needs to leave." David lowered his gaze, torn between loyalty to his wife and the guilt Lorena had cleverly planted in him. "Let's not be hasty," he murmured. "Give me some time. I'll handle it." But as Isabel stormed out of the study, she knew deep down that David wasn't ready or willing to sever his ties with Lorena Vale. Late one evening, frustration and insomnia drove Isabel to wander the mansion's corridors. She found herself stopping by Lorena's ground floor suite, a place she typically avoided to preserve her sanity. The door was ajar, faintly illuminated by a soft lamp. She heard hushed voices, Lorena speaking on the phone. "Yes, I'll keep up the act," Lorena whispered, her tone cold. "He's totally under my thumb. I'll get everything I want. Just watch." There was a pause, punctuated by a dismissive laugh. "No, I'm not worried about her. She's pregnant and too emotional to think straight." Isabel's blood ran cold. She tiptoed closer, heart pounding as she tried to catch more of the conversation. Lorena continued, "I'll milk this illness angle for as long as necessary. He's already agreed to pay for that fancy spa in Switzerland once the treatments here are done. Of course, I'll vanish before she can blow the whistle. That's the plan." A sudden wave of dizziness nearly caused Isabel to stumble. Everything she'd feared was confirmed in those few sentences. Lorena was faking her illness, playing on David's compassion for personal gain. Racked with outrage, Isabel carefully backed away from the door, returning to her bedroom on shaky legs. She paced the floor, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her initial impulse was to burst into Lorena's suite and expose the charade, but she knew David needed tangible proof. He was too enmeshed in Lorena's manipulations, too blinded by guilt and pity to take Isabel's suspicions at face value. Calmly but firmly, she vowed to gather the evidence that would unmask Lorena once and for all. The next day, Isabel sought assistance from an unexpected ally, Michael Petrov, David's head of security. She found him in his office, a small corner of the mansion where monitors displayed the estate's surveillance feeds. A tall, stoic man with a reputation for discretion, Michael was surprised by Isabel's presence, but politely offered her a seat. "I need your help," Isabel began, trying to steady her nerves. "I suspect Miss Vale is not who she claims to be. I overheard her admitting to some kind of con. But David won't believe me without proof." Michael arched an eyebrow, his expression guarded. "M-A-A-M, Mr. Swanson told me to accommodate Miss Vale's needs. Are you asking me to spy on her?" Isabel inhaled deeply. "Yes, check her background, her medical records if possible. Watch her movements. She's tricking David, and if we don't stop her, it could ruin us financially, emotionally, everything." Michael hesitated, glancing at the ring on Isabel's finger and the slight swell of her abdomen. "I serve this family," he said at last. "If someone poses a threat, I'll do what I can. But I advise caution. If Mr. Swanson finds out we're investigating someone he's trying to help." Isabel nodded resolutely. "I'll handle David. Just please, help me get the truth." Thus, a clandestine operation began within the halls of the Swanson mansion. Unknown to Lorena, her every move would be scrutinized. Unknown to David, his wife was orchestrating a quiet rebellion against his misguided benevolence. 2 days passed, and Lorena Vale continued to play her role, convincingly lounging in bed, complaining of dizziness, and occasionally gasping dramatically for air. Yet, small inconsistencies started to appear. Once, she forgot to don her scarf before stepping into the hallway, revealing a lush head of hair that contradictorily looked far from thinning or patchy. Another time, she ordered a spicy Thai dish for dinner, a curious choice for someone claiming to struggle with nausea from aggressive treatments. Meanwhile, Michael Petrov wasted no time setting up hidden cameras in Lorena's suite, discreet micro-lenses tucked into air vents and ornamental fixtures. He also hired a private investigator, a resourceful woman named Pauline Granger, to look into Lorena's past. Pauline's initial findings were baffling. Lorena Vale's supposed medical records at the city's top oncology center were nowhere to be found. Even the clinic she claimed to visit weekly had no file of a patient by that name. Isabel waited anxiously for updates, her heart fluttering every time Michael discreetly relayed a piece of new intelligence. She found it increasingly difficult to maintain a cordial facade around Lorena. She also struggled to hide her building resentment from David. The tension between husband and wife was thick enough to cut with a knife. One evening, as they prepared for bed, David reached out to place a hand on Isabel's belly, only for her to recoil instinctively. He withdrew, hurt dancing in his eyes. "You're pushing me away, Isa," he said softly. "Don't you trust me?" She fought back tears. She wanted to scream that Lorena was a fraud, but she held her tongue. She knew she needed incontrovertible proof. "I'm just tired," Isabel muttered, avoiding eye contact. "I need space." David exhaled, frustration evident. "I'm doing my best, you know, to juggle everything: work, the baby, Lorena's needs. It's not easy." Isabel turned off the bedside lamp, plunging the room into shadow. "Maybe if you listened to me and set boundaries, it wouldn't be so hard," she replied, her voice edged with bitterness. The next morning brought a small victory. Lorena emerged from her suite in a rush, forgetting that her facade required a show of frailty. She hurried toward the dining room, presumably to catch David before he left for the office. Michael's hidden camera captured every agile step, no signs of fatigue, no limp, no shortness of breath. In fact, she appeared as healthy as anyone else. Michael discreetly forwarded the footage to Isabel's phone, along with a succinct text, "She's slipping up." Isabel's heart raced. They were closer to the truth. The question was, would David be open to seeing it? That afternoon, the private investigator Pauline Granger delivered her preliminary report. Lorena Vale's real name was Lorraine Valenzuela, a small-time con artist with a history of targeting wealthy men under various sob stories: debt, illness, accidents. She'd left a trail of lawsuits and unsettled disputes in 3 different states. Suddenly, the entire puzzle fell into place for Isabel. The next step was to gather everything: video evidence, documents, Lorena's shady history, and confront David once and for all. Yet Isabel couldn't shake the gnawing fear that Lorena, sensing the walls closing in, might do something drastic before they could expose her. Bolstered by evidence from Michael and Pauline, Isabel decided that the time had come to rip off the facade. She was determined to present it all to David: footage of Lorena's suspicious actions, background checks, and proof of her multiple identities. That evening, she waited for David in the mansion's drawing room, a stately space adorned with antique furniture and portraits of distant relatives. The tall windows overlooked the estate's sweeping lawns, illuminated by soft dusk light. Isabel stood near the fireplace, arms crossed over her belly. She had arranged her findings in a neat folder on a nearby side table, ready for him to see. Her pulse hammered in her ears. When David walked in, exhaustion lined his face. "Isabel, you wanted to talk?" he asked, attempting a tired smile. She gestured for him to sit. Wariness clouded his eyes. "You're scaring me," he admitted. Without preamble, Isabel launched into the matter. She showed him the first clip, a video of Lorena moving energetically around her suite. Next, the documents that revealed she hadn't visited the cancer treatment center she claimed to frequent. Finally, Pauline's background check, detailing Lorena's past cons. David leafed through the pages, color draining from his face. How is this possible?" he muttered, hands trembling. "She told me she was dying, that her family disowned her. She had medical statements, scans, all forged," Isabel said quietly, tears of betrayal in her eyes. "She's running a scam on you, David, and in the process she's tearing us apart. She's lying to get your money, your sympathy, everything." David sprang to his feet, pacing by the fireplace. Anger twisted his features. "I let this happen," he murmured, voice cracking. "She played me for a fool." Isabel approached him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "We can still fix this, David. But you have to act now, confront her, throw her out. I've been begging you to see reason for weeks." He turned to her, guilt and sorrow etched into his expression. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I wanted to believe I was doing the right thing. I never meant to hurt you." At that moment, footsteps echoed in the hallway. They looked up to see Lorena standing in the doorway, the scarf askew on her head, fury and panic flickering across her face. She must have overheard their conversation. "So you've been snooping around, Isabel," Lorena accused, her voice high and tremulous. Gone was the trembling victim. Instead, a hardened edge infused her tone. "Spying on a dying woman?" David glowered at her. "Cut the charade, Lorena. We know everything. This ends now." For a beat, Lorena's expression faltered. Then her eyes narrowed, and she let out a contemptuous laugh. "You think you can throw me out just like that? After all I've suffered? After everything you promised me?" David opened his mouth to retort, but she stepped forward, jabbing a finger at him. "I've got pictures, texts, evidence that you and I were intimately involved." She cast a sly glance at Isabel. "If your pregnant wife here finds out exactly how close we got, your precious reputation might implode." A stunned silence filled the room. Isabel locked eyes with David, the look in her eyes asking one urgent question. Did you have an affair with her? His silence spoke volumes. And just like that, the foundation of trust that had begun to mend fractured once more. With Lorena wielding the hammer, a coldness settled in Isabel's chest. She wanted to scream, to demand explanations, but the shock rendered her mute. Instead, she stared at David, searching his features for denial or remorse. He seemed paralyzed, eyes darting between Isabel and Lorena, as though uncertain whom to appease first. Lorena seized the moment. Sensing the upper hand, she dropped all pretense of frailty. "Yes, dear," she said with saccharine smugness. "Your husband and I had more than a philanthropic relationship. It started at a fundraising gala in the Hamptons. One thing led to another, and soon he was paying my rent, my bills, even my spa treatments." She flashed a triumphant grin, and, well, you know the rest. David finally spoke, voice quivering. "Stop it, Lorena." He turned to Isabel, eyes flooded with regret. It was a huge mistake, a drunken night that spiraled. She threatened to expose me if I didn't help with her medical claims. God, Isabel, I was an idiot. Any illusions of a fleeting involvement or misunderstood kindness evaporated in an instant. Isabel's heart pounded so violently she feared she might faint. "A mistake?" she echoed, tears blurring her vision. "While I've been pregnant with our child, you've been with her?" "I ended it," he insisted, desperation coloring his words. But then she claimed she had cancer, said it was because of her heartbreak or some nonsense, and I felt responsible. She threatened to ruin me unless I supported her treatment. Lorena snickered. He was always a soft touch, easier to manipulate than I expected. Isabel's breath came in ragged gulps as she absorbed the betrayal. The swirl of conflicting emotions, love, rage, hurt, horror left her reeling. She had fought so hard to prove Lorena's deceit, only to discover an even deeper betrayal in her own marriage. With a fierce rush of resolve, she turned on Lorena. "Pack your things and get out," she hissed, her voice trembling yet resolute. "You've played your last con here." Lorena's lips curled. "What makes you think I'm leaving so easily? The media loves a scandal, darling, and I have enough evidence to paint David as a cheater who abandoned his cancer-stricken lover. Imagine how donors, investors, your precious neighbors would react." Her gaze flickered to David. "Your choice. Either I walk away with a generous settlement, or I blast your entire filthy secret across every tabloid in the tri-state area." David slumped against the mantel, face ashen. Isabel trembled with hatred and heartbreak, her hand drifting protectively to her abdomen, as though shielding her unborn child from the toxicity that filled the room. "She has no right," Isabel began, but David cut in, defeated. "She's got me cornered," he admitted. "My business would be destroyed, my reputation gone. We have to handle this carefully." Stunned, Isabel realized that David was considering paying Lorena off. After all this, the lies, the audacity, the threat to their very marriage, he was still willing to negotiate with a blackmailer. And just like that, Isabel's heartbreak morphed into a steely determination. If David would not do what was necessary, she would do it herself. One way or another, Lorena Vale, con artist, faux cancer patient, and false mistress would never again darken her doorstep. 2 hours later, the Swanson mansion stood oppressively silent. David had sequestered himself in his study, presumably to weigh his options with attorneys on the phone. Lorena had retreated to her suite, smugly packing her belongings in expectation of a payout. And Isabel, reeling from the revelation of her husband's infidelity, found no solace in any corner of her home. She paced the second-floor hallway, feeling her baby shift within her, as if sensing the turmoil. Tears threatened, but she forced them back. I have to be strong, she told herself, for me and for this child. Steeling her resolve, she descended the grand staircase and made her way to Lorena's suite. She knocked sharply on the door, her anger a stronger force than her heartbreak at that moment. Lorena opened it, arching an eyebrow. She stood there in an expensive silk dressing gown, undoubtedly paid for by David. "Oh, hello, dear," she drawled. "Have you come to accept defeat?" Isabel stepped into the suite without waiting for an invitation, eyes scanning the half-packed designer luggage on the bed. Her voice was deadly calm when she spoke. "You're going to leave now," she said, "and you will not see another cent from David or from anyone in this household ever again." Lorena laughed. "And how exactly are you planning to accomplish that?" David's business empire will crumble under the scandal if I go public." Isabel glared. "David might be willing to risk everything for hush money, but I won't. I know all about your criminal history. One tip to the authorities, and you'll be facing fraud charges, and that's not even counting blackmail and extortion." The smug confidence in Lorena's eyes flickered. "You have no proof," she snapped, though her tone wavered. "Oh, but I do," Isabel countered, brandishing the folder of Pauline Granger's research. "Records of your past aliases, your prior cons, your arrests for petty crimes. Coupled with the video footage we have of you in perfect health, it's more than enough to bury you." She took a step closer, voice cold. "If you release your little scandal, the tabloids might have a field day, yes. But my lawyers will make sure you end up behind bars for years. Good luck enjoying your blackmail money then." Lorena's face contorted with fury. You can't threaten me. This isn't a threat," Isabel said, her composure like steel. "It's a choice I'm giving you. Leave quietly, and we'll keep your name out of the criminal case. Keep pushing, and we'll drag your reputation through the courts until there's nothing left of your career. And trust me, I'll follow through." For several long beats, they stared each other down, tension crackling. Finally, Lorena's shoulders slumped, and she turned away. "Fine," she muttered, "but I want to speak with David one last time. He owes me at least a plane ticket out of here." Isabel's stomach churned at the thought of Lorena speaking to David alone, but she suspected David had no more illusions left to feed. "You have 10 minutes, Isabel said icily. "Then I want you out of my house." She stormed back into the hallway, head held high, adrenaline surging through her veins. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of triumph. But amid that victory, a deeper wound bled. Her husband's betrayal still stung like salt in an open cut. Even if Lorena's departure ended one nightmare, what remained for Isabel was another heartbreak-laden path she wasn't sure she could handle. True to her word, Isabel gave Lorena exactly 10 minutes to talk to David in the study. She stationed herself near the doorway, close enough to intervene if the conversation escalated, but far enough to avoid overhearing every painful detail. The muffled exchange reached her ears, a mix of Lorena's biting tones and David's apologetic muttering. Isabel cringed at the realization that David, for all his success and intelligence, had allowed himself to be manipulated so thoroughly. Eventually, the study door creaked open and Lorena emerged, face stormy. She cast Isabel a final, venomous glance. "You'll regret this," she hissed under her breath, brushing past. Isabel didn't flinch. "Not as much as you will if you stay," she replied calmly. Minutes later, a taxi pulled up to the front of the mansion, and Lorena departed for good. Isabel watched from an upstairs window, arms wrapped protectively around herself. She couldn't deny the wave of relief that crashed over her as Lorena's figure disappeared down the driveway. Yet the relief was quickly replaced by a profound sadness that threatened to swallow her whole. She found David still in the study, staring at an empty whiskey glass, as though searching for courage at the bottom of it. "She's gone," Isabel announced, her voice toneless. He looked up, shame and exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "Thank you," he mumbled. "You saved us from a scandal. I can't believe you did all that research. Threatened her with legal action. You're incredible." His words stung more than comforted. Isabel walked to the fireplace, gazing at the dying embers. "Don't mistake my actions for forgiveness, David," she said quietly. "I did what I had to do to protect our child and the life I built. But you," her voice broke, "you betrayed me." He stood, crossing the room in a few hurried steps, but halted just shy of touching her. "I know, and I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve your trust anymore, but please tell me how I can fix this." A harsh laugh escaped her lips. "Fix it? You slept with another woman, lied to me for months, and let that woman move into our home, our child's home. How do you plan to undo that damage?" David lowered his head. I'll do anything. Therapy, public apology, you name it. I just don't want to lose you or our baby." Isabel's heart twisted. She remembered the man she fell in love with, the man who once spun dreams of family vacations and growing old together. She also recalled the heartbreak of discovering his affair. Words failed her, so she simply shook her head and stepped back. "I need space," she whispered. "For me, for the baby. I can't look at you right now without feeling sick." David reached a hand toward her, but she retreated again. "Take all the time you need," he finally said, voice choked. "I'll move out for a while. Let you have the house in peace." Tears slipped down Isabel's cheeks as he quietly left the study. She understood that ending Lorena's con was just the beginning of a deeper battle, one that would unfold between herself, her unborn child, and the man who had shattered her heart. In the weeks that followed Lorena's departure, the Swanson mansion felt hollow. David kept his word, moving into a corporate apartment in Manhattan, leaving Isabel alone with a skeleton household staff. On the surface, the situation was exactly what Isabel had requested: space to heal, to think without constant reminders of David's betrayal or Lorena's manipulations. Yet at night, when the house lay silent, she felt the ache of loneliness gnaw at her. Every corner of the estate reminded her of the life she once cherished, the lounge chair by the pool where they'd lounged on lazy summer afternoons, the music room where David would strum his guitar, making her laugh with off-key serenades, the nursery that was nearly complete for the baby. Memories bombarded her with equal parts nostalgia and sorrow. Her family and close friends rallied around her. Her best friend, Alicia Morgan, drove down from Boston to offer moral support, staying for a few days to help reorganize the nursery and chat over late-night mugs of cocoa. Isabel's parents, who lived in Pennsylvania, offered to let her move back home, but she hesitated. This mansion was supposed to be her dream home. Was she really ready to give it up? Meanwhile, David called every few days, leaving messages that ranged from apologetic to pleading. "I'm starting therapy," he said in one voicemail. "I'd do anything to fix this. Please let me be part of the baby's life." Isabel listened, but never found the heart to respond. She was torn between the love she once believed was unbreakable and the weight of David's infidelity. Her obstetrician, Dr. Eleanor Sharp, expressed concern that the stress might affect the baby. "You need rest, both physical and emotional," Dr. Sharp gently advised at a prenatal checkup. "Is there any way you can simplify your life right now? Focus on yourself and your child's well-being." Isabel took those words to heart. After some contemplation, she cancelled all upcoming social commitments and decided to finalize the nursery this time on her own terms. Painting the room a soothing lavender, she filled the shelves with children's books and framed prints of whimsical animals. The activity brought her moments of calm amidst the emotional wreckage. One afternoon, as she arranged plush toys in the crib, Michael Petrov appeared at the nursery door. "Ma'am," he said, voice respectful, "I just wanted to say I'm glad Miss Vale is gone, and I'm sorry for not doing more sooner." He paused, pressing a hand over his heart. "If you ever need anything at all, please ask." Isabel gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Michael. Your help was invaluable. I just wish." David had listened before everything got so out of hand. Michael nodded, then quietly left. In the hush of the nursery, Isabel touched her growing belly and whispered, "I promise I'll protect you, no matter what." Even as she spoke, she wondered if part of that protection meant giving David a second chance or walking away completely. With each passing day, Isabel gained clarity. She realized that while Lorena was a parasite who had faked cancer for financial gain, David's betrayal was not solely Lorena's doing. He had chosen to cheat, had chosen deception over honesty, and had allowed guilt and manipulation to overshadow his marriage vows. If she stayed, it would not be for a fairy tale or a hollow promise, but for the possibility of rebuilding something genuine, if that was even possible. Yet the path to forgiveness was murky. Dr. Sharp's concerns rang in her head, reminding her that stress could harm the baby. With a calmer mind, Isabel finally listened to a stack of David's voicemails one evening. His voice was thick with remorse in each message. He spoke of therapy sessions, of wanting to co-parent effectively, of missing her terribly. On a tentative whim, she dialed him back, heart thrumming as the call connected. He answered on the second ring. "Isabel," he breathed, voice breaking slightly. She closed her eyes, steadying herself. "I got your messages," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "I'm still hurt, David. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again, but for the baby's sake, we need to communicate." A silence followed, heavy with unspoken relief. "Yes," he agreed. "Anything you need. We can talk about visitation schedules, doctor's appointments, whatever you decide." They arranged a meeting at Dr. Sharp's office for the next prenatal visit. When the day came, Isabel arrived early, anxiety pinching her stomach. She sat in the waiting room, rummaging through a parenting magazine. A few minutes later, David stepped in, looking markedly different, hair slightly unkempt, eyes rimmed with fatigue, suit a bit wrinkled. And yet, a humility in his posture suggested genuine effort to make amends. They exchanged awkward greetings. The nurse soon called them in for the ultrasound. Watching the monitor, seeing the baby's strong heartbeat, both felt tears prick their eyes. The moment was bittersweet, overshadowed by betrayal, but also illuminated by the miracle of life they'd created together. Afterward, they sat outside a nearby cafe. David hesitated before speaking. "I know it's not my place to ask for anything," he began, voice low, "but is there a chance we could try therapy together? A couples counselor or something? If you don't want to salvage our marriage, I understand. But I need to at least try, for our child's future." Isabel stirred her tea thoughtfully. She wasn't sure if her heart was ready for that step. Yet, the sincerity in his eyes gave her pause. "I'm considering it," she admitted. "But it'll take time, a lot of time." David nodded, swallowing a lump in his throat. "I'll wait," he whispered. "And even if you decide you never want to be with me again, I'll do my part as a father, no matter what." A faint glimmer of hope touched Isabel's chest. The journey ahead was uncertain and filled with potential landmines of hurt and resentment. But for the sake of the life she carried, she was willing to explore the possibility of mending or at least forging a respectful co-parenting path. Letting out a shaky breath, she allowed herself a small smile. "One day at a time," she said softly. In the months that followed, Isabel embarked on a cautious path of rebuilding both herself and any semblance of partnership she might maintain with David. She agreed to see a marriage counselor, Dr. Miriam Gardner, a woman in her 60s with years of experience in guiding couples through rocky waters. Their initial sessions were raw and difficult, with Isabel expressing her anger and betrayal, while David confessed his guilt and fear of losing everything that mattered. Throughout those sessions, the memory of Lorena Vale still haunted them. At times, David's phone would buzz with unknown numbers, possibly remnants of Lorena's circle or tabloid reporters fishing for scandal. But Lorena herself never reappeared. Pauline Granger, the private investigator, reported that Lorena had been spotted boarding a flight to Europe. No official charges were filed, as per Isabel's promise, and with no active blackmail, Lorena seemed content to vanish into the distance. With the baby's due date approaching, Isabel found herself focusing less on Lorena and more on the child who would soon grace her life. She continued preparing the nursery, finalizing details for an at-home caretaker in the first few weeks postpartum, and reading up on everything from breastfeeding to newborn sleeping habits. David, from his corporate apartment, sent helpful items and arranged for a state-of-the-art crib to be delivered, gestures of support that Isabel acknowledged but did not overly praise. She was determined not to let material gifts cloud the real emotional work that needed to be done. Friends and family whispered opinions on every side. Some urged her to divorce him outright. Others believed in second chances. Isabel listened politely but made her own decisions. Gradually, she noticed David making an effort to regain her trust, attending therapy diligently, sharing daily updates about his schedule, even enrolling in a fatherhood class at the local community center. While the pain of betrayal still lingered, she could no longer dismiss his attempts as empty gestures. On a cool autumn evening, roughly a month before her due date, Isabel sat in the nursery's rocking chair, staring at the soft glow of the moon through the window. She placed a hand on her belly, feeling the gentle flutters and kicks. A quiet knock on the door startled her. She turned to see David standing there, holding a small teddy bear. "May I come in?" he asked gently. She nodded, watching as he approached, setting the teddy bear next to the crib. His gaze flicked around the room, taking in the lavender walls, the shelves of children's books, the whimsical mobile. "It's beautiful," he murmured. "You've done a wonderful job." Isabel nodded, tears pricking at her eyes. They stood there in silence for a long moment. Finally, David spoke. "I know we have a long road ahead, Isabel. I just want you to know that no matter how long it takes, I'm in this for the long haul. Our child, our family, it means everything to me." She studied his face, seeing sincerity rather than desperation. Though a small voice in her mind warned against trusting too easily, another voice reminded her that love can mend cracks if tended with genuine effort. She rested her hand over his, letting him feel the baby's movements. "One day at a time," she repeated, voice trembling slightly with cautious hope. As they stood there under the gentle glow of the nursery lamp, it was clear that while Lorena's deception had nearly destroyed them, it had also forced them to confront the fragile foundations of their marriage. Whether they chose to rebuild or to part ways, the final chapter of this saga would be written by their shared devotion to the life about to enter the world and the resilience of a heart that could still dare to love in the aftermath of shattering betrayal. Lorena Vale's ruthless scheme to fake cancer and manipulate her way into David Swanson's luxurious home shook Isabel's world to its core, exposing lies that threatened everything she held dear. Yet in that earthquake of betrayal, Isabel discovered reserves of strength she never knew she had. With determination and courage, she unmasked Lorena's deception, only to face the even deeper wound of David's infidelity. Their marriage, once pristine, now hinges on transparency, honest reflection, and a willingness to heal piece by broken piece. Thank you for joining us in this roller coaster tale of heartbreak and perseverance. If Isabel's journey moved you, Please show your support, like this video, share it with anyone who loves a gripping emotional story, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama. Your engagement helps us continue telling stories that resonate with the heart. Stay tuned for our next immersive saga. You won't want to miss it.